Even though it's only 3 games in the lower bracket today, I think the upper bracket has showed us that you cannot fall behind the curve, and it's going to get exponentially harder because it's no longer top 25. It is straight down to that top 15. And if you're looking at the upper bracket, top 15 was around 96 points. A much heavier threshold for anybody else.
A lot less leeway, right, on the qualification. You can't risk going down early. But it's difficult because there's so many duos that are contesting each other. You can see as they confirmed, Nitro Drone is going to be the spot where Volko and Cringe have decided to drop here in the lower bracket. They're up against Squizzy and Zoom. And it looks like they're not going to wait long to take this fight.
Cringe just got to be careful, though. He doesn't have a shotgun. Just has the combat AR. Zoom doesn't really have much either. That's where you see everybody kind of scrounging around, trying to get as much loot as possible. Nitro Jump isn't the easiest place to contest. Obviously, you got your nooks, crannies, corners to hide behind, but the amount of volume, the audio right now, just makes it so hard to hear a lot of these players.
I'm looking at the surrounding area as well. The issue is there's only one kind of trio of duos that are contesting each other just south of Nitro Drone. So if anything goes wrong between those duos, they might end up heading up north towards them with a potential third party. But here we are, the red line rig. Noah Rayleigh put into a difficult 1 versus 2 situation, but he's connecting his shots now, cracking one of his opponents. This is a duo that I would expect to see in grand finals. His duo Aqua, 2-time FNCS champion, but he's been unable to make it to finals since the start of Major 1, but can Noah help him do it? No, he cannot. Noah goes down. That's 1 out of the 3 matches they have to make grand finals, and it's not a good start.
That just looked so unfortunate. It almost even looked like double 22s out of the gatekeeper. That's something that you really can't expect to happen. I give him an A for effort, but now with 1 game down and gone, he's going to have to be in that pressure cooker for the next 2 to figure out how they're going to make up that gap. It's almost mirrored from however they performed in that day 2 of the upper bracket, which caused them to go to the lower side of things. Brutal Beachhead. They talked about the different switch-ups in the drops. 2 teams contesting here, 3 teams contesting here. It's getting more and more active, which, hey, it could be a little bit of a blessing for Reason and Vidil, whether they get the medallion or not. This is an opportunity for some early game storm surge, which was the reason why they went down in the upper bracket.
Yeah, Mini was talking about it. I'm looking at the drop map, and we do have Reason and Vidil here. We have Finn and Kentic as well. However, one of the duos, I'm not sure where they went. They might be a bit more north or kind of scavenging loot in the surrounding area. I'm not sure if you saw if Finn had any eliminations, but I think it's been pretty passive so far at Brutal Beachhead. Vidil was practicing his drops on stream before this match, so they were able to take home the upper side of this drop spot, which has a majority of the loot and better positioning. But no quick engagements have fell through. We saw Hellfire and QB. They were on the borderline of qualifying from the uppers, but weren't unable to make it. So they've already had 3 matches to warm up, get in the zone, compared to the other players that came directly to the lower bracket.
And I think that's kind of like having a little bit of mental struggles for some of these teams that went down. They underperformed. Game didn't go their way. 3 of them, to be exact, in the upper bracket. And now with their last chance, there's probably so many different thoughts racing through their head. How much do you actually change up from the upper bracket to the lower bracket? You know as well as I do, the Cactus is still going to be a main focal point for a lot of the teams to rotate over and try to claim before anybody else does. Other than that, I'm not sure how much things will change.
Going closer to Pleasant Piazza. I don't think we've seen a single zone kind of end in this direction of the map. As some shots will be taken. None traded. Some duos already based up on the elevated ridges of the area. But it doesn't look like aggression is the main focus for any of these duos.
Yeah, it almost looked like they were kind of rotating on over, checking out the forecast tower. Chapatinho no longer in this game, and this is their main focal point of their entire strategy, which opens up that opportunity for anybody else to try to claim it. And it does look like X-Squeeze and his teammate are going to be the first ones on top of that mountain, claim the launch pad and all the surrounding space. But not everybody here in this lobby is going to have a lot of that freedom to move around. Clement and Buzz, this is a drop spot you've seen them fight yesterday throughout the day. It's just one of those, it's like a 50-50. Even if you disengage, there's just not a lot of loot and resources around this area that isn't already claimed by somebody else.
Yeah, with such a quick turnaround from uppers to lowers, I would expect this match to be one of the most chaotic. We had, for example, Vico and Flixie, who had Reckless Railways uncontested. Now there's 3 duos dropping in Reckless. The triple con. As you can see how quickly things can change up. As Clement here and his duo are going to choose to go kind of towards the side of the map where the cactuses are. This is where Queasy and Thomas HD were boxing up a lot in the upper bracket to look for some tags, some shots. And it looks like Clement has a similar idea.
Yeah, I feel like they've kind of learned. They saw Queasy and Thomas, how well they did from Classy Courts. They switched up, made that their drop spot for this lower bracket, and they're almost mirroring that strategy. They go straight down towards past restored reels to where one of the earliest cactuses are at. And you're seeing a lot of these people adapt literally on the fly, switch up drop spots, switch up loot pads to try to give themselves a better chance. And rightfully so, Takata, that is the recipe that has shown a lot of success throughout the weekend so far.
I mean, it's what Fortnite competitive is about. Sometimes you have more time to do your homework. Sometimes you're in a rush, but getting it done is what matters. These players are at a level that they need to be aware of who's dropping in their surroundings and who is kind of on their mid-game loot path or even storm surge path. So they know not only to look in the feed and see if some of their opponents are getting into fights so they could potentially third party, but also just to know kind of how their opponents play, so they can base their own play style off of that to maximize their efficiency in terms of the rotations and not losing shield on rotates and knowing where they can farm up the metal. It gets complicated, and sometimes you don't have a lot of time to kind of make that masterclass game plan when you're coming from uppers to lowers and the drop spots suddenly change. But after this game, hopefully these players get a pretty good sense of what's going on in the surroundings, what's free, what's not, what's a dangerous rotate, what isn't. X-Squeeze and Floki, they played very well in the off-spawn engagements for the upper bracket, but unfortunately they're here in their last chance now, the last chance for everybody to make it to the grand finals.
Yeah, it's tough, and as each and every game goes on, even every zone as the day goes on, depending on where you're at in the leaderboard, it's going to cause just a little bit more stress, a little bit more panic. So you want to make sure you start off the day good. Game number 1, maybe even get in the top 8, get a half of the placement points, combine that with eliminations, and just make sure that you just leave very little for you to do in game 3 when you get there, because we saw upper bracket, the last game of the day, it really came down to the wire with teams having to make it to the end just to qualify for the grand finals. Everybody else we see here in the lower bracket. So with the last chance here at Life, hopefully a lot of these teams will begin to take advantage of that, whether if it's making a little bit more risk in their game plan that they didn't in the upper bracket, or maybe taking less risk. The choice is definitely theirs.
As time goes on, we'll see how those decisions change, because once you're on your last match, the third match, it's not like you get a lot of opportunities, Jacob. It's only 3 matches that's going to decide your fate of if you make it to the grand finals or not. This is what I was talking about. Reckless Railways, 3 duos now deciding to drop here after we had Vico and Flixie qualify uncontested from this drop spot. Raban and Pastroki being one of those duos, but as you can see, they don't have any eliminations, so it is a POI that has a significant amount of chests and loot that the duos don't necessarily have to kind of 50-50 off spawn and take those quick engagements. CZB and Nathan have looked like one of the most or more dominant duos here on EU, finishing second on day 1 in the upper bracket. But unfortunately, now we're seeing them here in the last opportunity in the lower bracket, Jacob. They have yet to qualify. They were incredibly consistent at the start, but they just haven't been able to pick it back up.
Yeah, I like the way you said that, though. Incredibly consistent at the start. It's usually games 4, game 5, game 6 that they tend to fall off that pedestal that they build themselves throughout the day with how consistent they can play. And now we take out game 4, 5, and 6. So if they continue to have that hot start, the one that we know they can, especially with 10 of the best teams out of the lobby already in grand finals, everybody else out of FNCS altogether, they have very few and little opposition in their way. If they can have a big consistent game, start to build that momentum, I have high hopes for them.
I hope so, Jacob. I hope so. From the performance initially, it's a duo I want to see in the grand finals. Bunkers now being picked up. A lot of the time, this is a position or kind of, I guess, a map objective that initiates a lot of engagements and fights, just like the Rift Island, but Not this time for Kovacs and his duo partner. As we head on over back towards the Nitrodrome. Volko and Cringe having been contested off the start. Yet to get an elimination, though. But that might change shortly.
Yeah, I thought they would just kind of climb up into their own surge base. Now they're stealing somebody else's. Well, that's one way to claim a tower, and they're just going all the way down near the water, breaking in through the side. Yo-Yo's just trying to bounce around, but he ends up in the same box, takes down Vorko. That's going to be a big switch up in this fight. Now they have a 1v2. They just got to allow themselves time to breathe because, you know, time is of the essence for Cringe to keep on attacking and keep his opponent slow, and he's doing a good job so far, but time is running out now that the Flowberry Fizz is being used.
Got to be careful. Is going to have to do a full disengagement here towards the Nitrodrome once again. Ricky Yo-Yo, this is one of the duos that's triple contested south of Nitrodrome. And it looks like they might have had a bit of difficulty securing loot, which forced them into this engagement. We kind of talked about it earlier as Cringe and Volko had to go up against Squizzy and Zoom off the start, and having a triple contestation just south of them could have potentially caused one of those duos to wander on up, and that might be exactly what just went wrong here. Cringe is now going to be left alone, and he has to face the choice of, does he go for the reboot later on? Does he try and clutch it out as a solo? Is Ricky and Yo-Yo going to chase him? It's definitely going to be difficult.
Yeah, especially if he even manages to get the reboot up. You just have materials, resources. It's going to be a tough one. Chari and Giras, same thing, but they're separated in their two different surge towers, trying to cover more ground, spot out more players, so that way they can try to elevate their surge well above everybody else who might be in the same surge tower. It's going to be the biggest opportunity to try to jump ahead of the game, because we know once you fall down that surge, everybody's boxed up. Everybody's in their own surge towers. It's not going to be easy for you to go ahead and get the damage that you need. And even if you get that opportunity when the zone is moving away, everybody's going to have to rotate. Well, you do too.
Luckily enough, with Nitro rings in play and all this environmental mobility, these early to mid-game rotations can be a little easier. But as we have more of a southern zone this time around, we've talked about it previously, Jacob, with cactuses in play and it being sort of meta to get storm surge damage. When the zone pulls south and it pulls to a location that has a majority of these cactuses on the map, the threshold for that storm surge is generally higher than if we pull north, so players will have to prepare for that and do as much damage as possible. But the Rift Island is a great position to do that, as players will be rotating towards here to get mobility, to get recuperation of materials, or even some extra loot from capturing the flag.
I feel like for them, it's necessary. It's not just needed, it's necessary. Because if you look at their heals, if you look at the entire situation they're in, they really don't have a ton to feel confident. And another team is now third-partying onto there. It's just going to get even more and more of a dangerous situation if it's prolonged. Shari and Gears really haven't moved. There's no reason to, because you see the Rift Island just on the southeast of where their current position, which means it's going to close in. Even if it centers up, Shari and Gears should still be in a good position here in the next couple of zones.
Shari and Giras had an incredible placement in Major 1 top 10 and have made the previous two finals this chapter, but have yet to advance to the grand finals in this third major of the year. So I'm hoping they can do it here. It's a top 15 is all it takes, Jacob. It was easier in the upper bracket for top 25, but top 15 is definitely doable. It's just going to be a bit more difficult.
Robound was, I think, literally like a couple of points behind. Unfortunately, he has to go again in the lower bracket side of things. Barely missing out on that opportunity. Hey, but that sometimes is a little bit of a warm-up. You know, instead of warming up in creative, playing your build fights. Yeah, I know you probably wanted to qualify through the upper bracket side of things, but at least now the excuse of, hey, I wasn't warmed up, hey, I wasn't ready is no longer going to be there. And they've had a chance to play, and I feel like a little bit of a harder lobby, and giving themselves a shot here with that geyser to save as much of their crash pads in rotation as possible.
Zone coming to a close here, as we'll take a look at what Vidil and Reason have been up to. Trying to get shots from as far, always the safer route. As you can see, a nice 108 connection plus another shot for the knock. They do have the cactus, so they're going to recuperate their HP and shield here without too much of an issue. For the players in zone battling it out, though, who aren't too far above Storm Surge. This is definitely going to be a situation where they have to be a lot more cautious.
Oof. Teammate gets taken down. He's still trying to run away. He can look back, land some shots on Toos and Karmi. That is a possible opportunity, and he's going to start doing just that, trying to hold him as much as possible. But you saw two teams on above that mountain just towards his east, but now he's actually going back. He's going back to try to finish the fight. He doesn't have HP to regain. Valiant effort for Mystic, but he's not going to get anything out of it. And I don't necessarily blame him. Down on Surge, no builds, no resources. It was either that or just run into the open, rotating to the next zone where it's going to be much harder to survive.
Yeah. In Fortnite, you want to have choices, and unfortunately, there was not a lot of choices there due to Storm Surge and the position they had put themselves in previously. For Karmi and his duo, though, they're feeling pretty good. The deal and reason we saw what they just did, it's caused them to be 371 above the threshold. We talked about how it's going to be higher this time around. I think the average for 8th zone in yesterday upper bracket was like 900 damage, a ridiculous amount when it ends up pulling south by these cactuses. So it's good that these top tier competitors have come prepared.
It's unfortunate that he actually didn't get the elimination because they missed out on grand finals in the upper bracket by 2 points. 2 points. That's not even a full elim because it's 4 points per elimination. So you got to make sure when you have those opportunities, try to clean it up. But he chose survival over everything else, which again, you can't blame or bet against, as Werex and Kurama are 146 below the damage threshold. Luckily for them, there is a team close by down the mountain. Werex instantly goes in, but he's going to get knocked down because of it. It's a little bit too overzealous trying to get the damage he needs, and now he's leaving the pressure all on his teammate to do it by himself.
The issue is Kurama can't even go for the escape route here as he is below. Flowberry, Fizz, and Cola's are all the heals he has to out-tank this Storm Surge. 67 players are still up.
He does have the Cola.
Is it going to be enough, though?
That's a good question. Colas will get him shields, allow him to survive a little bit longer. Flowberry, Fizz as well. It's at 150. It's like 200 HP and shield. He's definitely limited on the amount of time that he takes, but he's just probably betting on everybody else to take each other out first.
I mean, it's a risk that he has to take in this situation. Let's hope it does end up paying off, because once he gets cracked, if he loses his shield, that's going to be a clear sign to his opponents that he's low and getting ticked by Storm Surge. It's almost like an opening for them to push him. But for low-key, going early to zone is going to be the play.
Yeah, one of the first teams there. They didn't get deep into the zone towards Brutal Beachhead where it's opened up, but they got themselves a little bit of a hill. They got themselves elevation and a chance to look back. The majority of the lobby is rotating from the north, rotating from the east, giving them great lines of sight and opportunity for Surge. And you're seeing how messy it is on the other side for the players that are forced to make that rotation. Robon, Fast Roki, even though they're above Surge, the other team might not be, which puts them in a dangerous situation. But luckily, they're just staying alive. Quick peek out towards the side. He gets the knock on the one. Back to back shots fired. And that is going to be a quick double elimination onto two different teams, and that is a big one as well because they get the medallion for it.
This is huge. All they have to do is make it to zone, but Rabon's just a couple shots away from getting knocked. He does reach the ground. Builds come through, and now with a bit of fresh air that's not gonna last too long, Rabon gets knocked down. Fastroki's left alone. 0 builds to work with. All he has are a couple minis and a big pot, Jacob. I don't know how you get out of this.
Yeah, but we've seen Flixie do some stuff already today in the upper bracket by himself as a solo. But Fast Roki's in a much different situation. They're trying to toe tag him. He has to hide in any nook and cranny. A far pull, 0 resources, materials. Hey, but at least he has Surge, right?
At least he has Surge. He has a lot of it, to be fair. But if take a look at the minimap, bottom right, Jacob. The amount of players that are still yet to make a rotation into zone, and they're all clustered around where Fast Roki and even CZB and Nathan and all these players are right now. Do you rotate early? Do you rotate late with the potential risk of getting shot at later on? It's a tough spot to be in.
Especially when we just saw Robon just get beamed out of the sky using the crash pads for his rotation. They run into another med kit along the way. One man's trash is another man's treasure. They're definitely going to use that later in the game. Wind condition has been real. We've seen a few heal-offs already throughout this weekend. With the pressure on the line here, with only the top 15, I feel like we're going to see a few more.
Just down to 8 below X-Squeeze now. Although they did pick up an elimination off the start, it was not enough. Floki as well needs some heals. They have 3 med kits, but you ideally want to save those for the end. Floki's been knocked down now. X-Sweets has been cracked as well. It's CZB. It's Nathan on the aggressing end.
Yeah, they're trying to really pick up the pace. We know what they're capable of. We know how great their potential is. They just got to play to their potential. Floki finally gets cleaned up. They're going to get all those resources for it, leaving X-Squeeze with little to nothing. No shields to regain. He does have the med kits, but only 83 above the damage threshold is not a feeling of safety, since you have to go through a couple more zones worth of Storm Surge with players having to eliminate each other. He's just hoping that he positions himself next to one of these teams, close enough to where they don't target him, but far enough to where CZB and Nathan are looking like a pre-edit is going to be underway here soon.
The hardest hitting zone in terms of Storm Surge is now. It's all or nothing for these players that don't have enough damage. The first moving is going to pull northeast. QB has been left alone. He's lost Hellfire. The good news is, though, he has a significant amount of damage and a good amount of HP and shield. The deal and reason, 232 above. They're the only, well, previously, they were the only EU duo to win a game on day 1 in the upper bracket for both Major 1 and 2. And now in this third major, they have yet to qualify. It's their last chance in day 3 of the semifinals lower bracket. Literally the last 3 matches to make it to grand finals. They need to make something happen, Jacob.
So far, it's looking like smooth sailing. One zone to the next. They're looking up, spotting out all these teams flying by. And that information is important, knowing where these players are positioned at, so you know when to go ahead and try to rotate in. Others not feeling that same flexibility, only 68 above the damage threshold. So even though they're making their way to zone, they know there's an eventuality of them having to get surge. And there's so many struggles right now from Clement. He doesn't even know where he's going. He's just going with the flow.
The bouncy house for Clement, unable to find a location that's secure. Looks like it is going to be up above, though, but once again regrouped with his duo partner. Little shake up, but the good news is both players are up. Marius, Sangild are going to be the ones with the prime elevation.
It was all a part of the plan. Don't worry. It was all a part of the plan. It was to get information on the players that are hiding around. You know, they tagged those shots up. It was on purpose. Ask him yourself. Marius is Sangild. They have not only the high ground, but they're one of the closest teams to the front side of the zone. So in theory, they could do exactly this. Sit down, pitch a tent, and look back in the zone. Start to spot everybody out. They're low on surge, so it's needed as well. And when the zone finally reaches them, they can crash pad their way to the front side and regain that high control.
They have to make use of this opportunity where all the players now are rotating towards zone. The longer they take, the more of a risk they have to get shot once they start making their way on in, especially if there's opposing duos that decide to build up ahead of zone. They're quite far behind now. They're forced to use the crash pad. Hopefully they're able to make it, as Kovacs is going to do a similar rotate.
Ooh, a little bit of a short pad. Doesn't get as much distance as he'd hope, but at least it kept him safe. Because of that roof he put on, tries to reunite with a teammate, sliding in, but he gets tagged up. But nothing Akola can't fix. But if you look above, there's all that chaos. But Kryfalse, Kantri, they're way above everybody else. They have a good amount of resources as well. But 9th zone, it might be a little too early from what we've seen this weekend.
Almost everything they need, Jacob. All they have to do is keep applying pressure on the duos down below, especially second height and the ones that have that potential to try and overthrow them. But if they can connect their shots, if they can keep applying those shots from above, it could be enough to hold on.
Yeah, he's just trying to one-hit him with the hand cannon. It's the mythic one that they got from Rift Island. A couple missed opportunities there, but nobody looking up means they have so many more chances to land the shots that are needed. As Vidil, Reason just trying to heal up before they go on this next rotation. They got themselves farther enough the front side of zone so they can stagger themselves back. X-Squeeze tried to do the same thing, but without builds and without time, he goes down in game 1.
Down below is where the chaos is unfolding. Not too many players looking up at height. It's free raining from above as Kovacs now trying to get ahead of zone. His duo partner is low. They are able to group up, though. Now it's all about taking shots on the players that are down in the dirt.
Down goes Marius. Gutenberg's down as well. His team's just trying to take advantage, but they cannot get any of that loot. They need it. They desperately need the loot as Hootie's just trying to run around, grab together what he can. He cannot stagger himself in the zone, so he's going to get knocked because of it. Kryfalse, Kantri, they get credit for that one. He spots a medkit from above, wastes no time dropping down. They know how vital these resources have been throughout the day.
Got the builds from 1 build to 16. Now, once again, out of materials. All it's going to take is a couple shots at that wooden ramp, and they'll get dropped down. Look at Zone. It's Reason. Is he going to go for a play here? As down below, just 4 HP left. 1 shot needed. Can you stay up?
Now Teensy scrambling around. 1 build to protect himself. He tries to go up, but ends up going down altogether. Nobody having a chance to look back and contest the high ground, even though it's 1 ramp holding them up, but they're ready to go down for the challenge. 3 medkits in the inventory, 11 eliminations so far, even finding some extra loot and crash pads towards the outside. One of the only big and healthy duos up until that point where Kantri just takes a big shot.
Still no builds to work with. Luckily enough, his duo partner found some, even found a med kit, the potential for the heal off, but it looks like it's gonna end in a 2 versus 2, height versus low.
It's all about that resources on the low ground. You can see the Zone is pushing over towards some fallen players where there's even more loot there. Down because the cash bag, the disruption is in. Multiple med kits in case worse comes through as they're just bouncing around, trying not to get an easy shot. The hand cannon to the sky. It didn't even matter what happened to the other one because they just made the highlight play of the day.
Kryfalse ends it with an insane shot to close it out. Looked like a bouncy house party in the late game there with the crash pads going back and forth, but the shots that needed to be connected got connected and secured them that victory royale to push them up the leaderboard.
It's not a guaranteed grand final spot just yet, but you saw the threshold in that upper bracket. It's got even tighter, so getting a big win to start the day, building that confidence, and being able to carry that momentum from one game to the next is absolutely huge. Now let's check this one out again. So many crash pads. They didn't even know what to do on the other side. Some of them going out of zone, but that was the highlight shot right there. And because of the crash pads, his opponent was just so far out of zone already.
That was a nasty shot to close it out. But look, it's not like day 1 and 2. That victory royale isn't a golden ticket to grand finals. There's 3 matches to be played out. Top 15 make it to grand finals. 2 are left. We're going to head to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll continue the action, so don't go anywhere.